What if the secret to winning isn't talent or hard work, but the energy that you bring into every single moment? Did you know that the most successful people in the world don't just work harder, they actually manage their energy better? Have you ever wondered why some people have seemingly boundless energy and always end up on top? Could your lack of energy be the number one thing that's holding you down and holding you back from your goals and dreams? And finally, what is this magical connection between high energy and success? On this week's episode, we break it all down. Hey everyone, Coach Megan here, and I'm so excited to be talking about energy in this week's podcast. Now, I have to admit, I've always been somebody that has had a lot of energy. I think that it is my God-given personality. I have been called an Energizer Bunny. Just ask my husband when I have a brand new third wave of energy after we put baby girl to bed. And at 11 p.m., I can become quite the chatty Cathy in bed when he wants to just hit the pillow and fall asleep. So God bless him. And I'm not going to apologize for it because it's the way that God made me and I love it. But as I did more research about this, I actually discovered that there's a lot that goes into success when talking about energy. Now, on one side of the coin, we could be talking all about energetics and the levels of energy, and that is a podcast for another time. I am very into that as well. I am very interested in all those kinds of things as well. We teach certain elements of that at a baseline level in all of our coaching programs. And I highly encourage all of you to go get the book Levels of Energy, which you guys can read below. And also the book Power vs. Force, which is super good. And I'll put links to that there in my Amazon book favorites store. You guys can actually get a list of all of the business and personal development and growth books that I've read. Okay, I can't say there's all of them, but most of them, some of my favorites. I'm constantly adding to this list of letting you guys know what I'm reading, what my husband's reading, and these books that have really contributed to our financial success as well as the identity and the mindset that my husband and I both possess and carry to this day. I also have a separate list, which is all the faith books that I recommend. Again, not all, but a lot of the faith books that I recommend that have just blessed my life, my husband's life, and help us to develop and grow our faith practice and our faith journey that has gotten us to where we are today. So go check out those books and they will not disappoint, I promise you. So today we're going to be talking about how people with more energy are naturally more successful. And I don't want you to tune out if you are an introvert or if you're somebody that is an ambivert or the concept of having more energy naturally stresses you out. My husband is one of these people. He is an introvert, or I would say an ambivert. He decides when he wants to come out of his turtle shell when it comes to engaging with other human beings. And he's somebody that doesn't necessarily need a million people around him. Like, I'm his best friend. He's my best friend. And he's pretty content with that. And then family and maybe a couple other business buddies that he talks to about business stuff. And it's really interesting because we're very different in that way. I love to be around friends. I have about, I would say my close inner circle is 3 or 4 really good friends. My sister, my best friend Topi, my best friend Bev, a few people that we talk to on the regular, and we can hang out once a month or once a season, even as we're all super busy in our lives, and pick up where we left off. Then I have a next kind of concentric circle of individuals that are a rotating group of about 10 people that I love to hang out with. We do dinner parties, we do Hallmark movie nights. We love to hang out with our children, go on adventures together, see movies, things like that. People that we love to travel with as well, right? And so my husband and I are very different in that way. When it comes to his personality, he loves to have friends that have a purpose. And actually, as we've gotten more successful in our life, I would say that is true of both of us, because at the end of the day, there becomes a time in your life when you have more money than time. And so you end up investing your money to buy back your time. When you are climbing the ladder of success, when you are on the beginning of your success journey, oftentimes you have more time than money. So you invest with your time so that you can acquire more money, if it makes sense. Okay. So what's interesting is now is where we're at in our journey in our 30s, running businesses, we're parents, we're married. We have found that the people that are in our lives are people that can help us either acquire more time or acquire more money or even acquire more energy at the end of the day. And not in a way where people are transactional. It's not what I'm saying by any means, but We actually got this advice from one of our really good friends that exited a business with Tony Robbins. And we had him on our podcast, and that episode will be releasing soon, by the way. And he told us that the people in his life, pretty much 99.9% other than his family, if you're in his life, it's because you're going to end up doing business together. And that's just the way that God hardwired business owners. And at the end of the day, again, we look at life through such a perspective of, is this effective? Is this impacting people? Will this help society in some way? Will this help to create more resources so I can give back to the world in more of a way? And a word for some of you guys is that you need to start stewarding your time and your resources and your energy in a greater way that way. Some of you guys are not protective of your time enough, and you're allowing a ton of, if I can be frank, losers or mediocrity into your life. And then you're wondering why you are not on a path of acceleration in terms of your success. How does this apply to talking about energy? Really successful people not only have more energy, but they have more energy because they manage their energy way better. So whether you are more of an introvert or ambivert like my husband, or whether you are a staunch extrovert like myself, both buckets of people manage their energy incredibly well because of how much they know themselves. And so that's what I really want to get into today. And I'm excited to talk with you guys about this. Now, I'm going to just utilize the storytelling aspect of a pageant because that is a lot of my background. And maybe you haven't competed in a pageant, or maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I'm a dude, or I'm never going to do a pageant. Great. This will still apply to you, I promise. So listen up. So typically a state pageant is about a week long. A national pageant could be 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, sometimes international pageants. You're in Thailand for a whole month, right? So you can imagine if you are getting up at the butt crack of dawn, putting on full hair, makeup, and lashes, you are wearing things that are oftentimes very fashionable but uncomfortable. You are in rehearsals or doing appearances or out in the media doing interviews, long 12-hour days plus, and then you're going to bed. You're trying to send a text to your boyfriend or your family, or find some time to fill your cup back up, listen to a podcast, whatever. Take all your makeup off, pick out your outfits for the next day, and then try and turn your brain off enough to go to sleep. If you do that for even a week, by that 5th or 6th day, by that 4th day even, you're quite crunchy on the inside and trying to not look crunchy on the outside, okay? You had gotten a spray tan that you were trying to milk that thing on its 5th day, and now you're looking like a scaly reptile and trying to look cute, trying to do your spray tan in your hotel room, trying not to kill your roommate, even though you're a little crunchy because you haven't gotten a lot of sleep, right? And by the time that finals come, or even prelims come, which is the first day of competition for those of you who haven't competed in pageants, your energy feels like it's just not there, right? This is the cardinal sin that so many pageant competitors make, and that so many people, frankly, who are just on the pathway of their success, maybe it's working towards a big interview, or maybe it's, heck, 5 days of a vacation where you're not really vacationing, you're just busy doing all these different things, right? Or maybe it's studying for finals or studying for the bar exam. Whatever it is, if we are not properly managing our energy, when the time comes that you actually need to have that amazing 10 out of 10 energy, you are going to fail. And this is why successful people are rock stars at managing their energy. So now that I've taught you a little bit about why it is so important to manage your energy and how this ends up manifesting, I want to walk you guys through just a couple strategies of how you can do that, okay? Now, just finishing out that story, the person that properly manages his or her energy, let's just say her energy for the sake of pageant week, this is why I want to teach you guys some of these strategies, because a person who acknowledges how full their bucket is and makes sure that they're not living in this people pleasing, I need to be the star, I need to be the loudest person, I need to make a splash everywhere that I go, but is more in neutral or reserving their energy to have that kapow, kabang, big rock star energy for the mental fortitude that it takes, again, to maybe pass the bar exam, for emotional regulation that helps you mentally recall, physically recall, could be your transitions, your turns, your steps in your pageant, or again, the answers on a test for your final, for the bar exam. Okay, there is something mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional that is required of you, and it's going to be extremely hard to perform under pressure if your energy is at a negative 12, okay? This is going to set somebody free today because so often I see people get stuck in the tactics of things and they are blissfully unaware of this massive killer that is actually hurting them, which is the inability to know how to manage and conserve your own energy. Okay. So, of course, this applies to something big and overt like a pageant, but I want you guys to also consider and maybe even pause and think about this of other areas of your life that you have ultimately self sabotaged for big moments or moments where you needed to be your most outward, extroverted, on type self. Like something that I think of is my husband and I have been growing on our ability to produce content in this last year. So I mentioned in last week's episode that we were supposed to launch our podcast together last year. And then Landon got diagnosed with cancer. I got pregnant. We went through chemo. We had $36,000 in medical debt, all these different things, right? So it just wasn't the right time to tap in even further and say, hey, let's perform at a greater level. Like it was not the season for that, right? So even though we had teased it for like ever and we were really excited about it, really passionate about it, we wanted it to be the correct season. We had to take a step back and say, do we have the energy for this? Do we have the capacity for this? Or do we need to put ourselves on maintenance mode to make sure that we can provide for our family, that we can successfully heal from cancer, that you can have a healthy baby, and it's not worth the added stress just to check another box that we could say that we did another thing. And to be honest about that too, on the spiritual side of things, God wouldn't have blessed that. There was no anointing on that season to do one more thing. And so that's a word for somebody today too. More is not always better if it's not anointing and God's grace cloud is not over it, because at the end of the day, you're probably going to burn super, super bright and then you're going to burn out right after that. And consistency is a huge bedrock of success in the first place. So if you can't teach yourself to be consistent with especially a new thing when you're going to have the most passion and the most energy for it, which is always at the beginning of something, then you're just going to embarrass yourself at the end of the day, burning super hot, burning super bright. Maybe you put out 3 episodes and then you quit. Or maybe you do something a couple times, you go to the gym a couple days, and then you quit because all the energy and the fun of it is gone, right? So conserving our energy also helps us to stay focused on that long-term vision rather than only having vision in the here and now and passion and energy for the here and now. And that's why it is so incredibly important. Okay. One of the first ways that you can learn to conserve your energy, I actually talked a lot about last week, and this is in your decision making. So whatever you can put on automate, I highly encourage you to. This could look like picking out outfits the day before. It might sound silly when you're like, it's just an interview the next day, or it's just whatever it is. But I promise you, you don't want to expect that you are going to feel your best and therefore operate at your best. You want to control the controllables as much as possible because you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And not to produce any kind of fear or anxiety or anything, or even act like you are expecting the worst. We want to expect the best, but we want to prepare for the worst. So little things like picking out your outfit ahead of time, picking out what you're going to wear or what you're going to eat that day, controlling the different controllables that you know can help you to manage and conserve your energy, as well as the decisions that you have to make the next day so that you can conserve that energy for the decisions that matter the most and that are going to move the needle and move the ball forward for the goal ultimately that you are pursuing is the first step in helping you help yourself. Okay. So the second thing that you can do is really just planning ahead. And part of this has to do with knowing who is on your team and learning how to delegate as an individual. So big goals are never accomplished alone, or I should say, very seldomly ever accomplished alone, okay? When you are climbing up the mountain to get from the bottom or the middle to the top, you have tools and resources with you. Let's look at this on a very practical level. If I'm climbing Mount Everest, first of all, that is a big, giant goal. I've never climbed a single mountain in my life, so I'm not about to climb Everest on day one, right? And I'm certainly not climbing Mount Everest without a massive amount of tools. Wow, this is just coming to me, Holy Spirit. Thank you for this amazing analogy. So as I'm climbing Mount Everest, quite literally, seasons are changing, okay? It takes multiple days, multiple weeks to climb Mount Everest, right? But if you know anything about summiting a mountain, the bottom could be like 90 degrees at the bottom. And the very top of the mountain could be like -5, right? That's how it is with Everest. So as you're preparing for a big goal and a long journey, not only do you have to conserve your energy, but you need tools and teammates to help get you to the top, right? If I was going to climb Everest, the first thing I would do is I would go call other people and try and get the phone number of people that had successfully climbed Mount Everest before me. The second thing I would do is I would go and I would listen to a boatload of podcasts of hikers and other summiters, people that have done these amazing things when it came to this journey and this challenge that I'm about to be on, right? Many of you guys are listening to this podcast because I have accomplished something that you want to learn how to do. So congratulations to you who are taking the right steps to be able to get there. I bring different clothing with me. I bring different food with me, right? I bring possibly a teammate or a guide or somebody that's going to help me along this journey. And then I'm going to make sure that I know what pace is sustainable for me and my energy. What are the things that I naturally can prepare for to help me outplan the self-doubt, the self-sabotage, and the natural personality tendencies that are going to cause me to want to say, I can't do this. I can't keep climbing. This isn't possible for me. And all those things can be uprooted through a little bit or a lot bit of preparation, okay? The next thing that you can do to help conserve and preserve your energy is actually working on stopping to compare and judge yourself against other people along the journey. So if I'm comparing myself who's at the bottom or doing my first pageant or doing my first job interview or getting into my first relationship, and I'm comparing myself to somebody that's been married for 30 years, is at the top of the corporate ladder, or has already won an international pageant, no matter if that comparison is true or false, which there might be elements that are true, might be elements that are false, you are going to self-sabotage yourself because you are comparing an apple, not even to like an orange, you're comparing an apple to like broccoli, okay? They're both food, but one is a fruit and one is a vegetable. They're not even necessarily the same color unless it's a green apple, but you're telling yourself that it should be a direct comparison. And when you're doing that, you are like putting a 100x magnifying mirror up to your face and then wondering why your pores look so big. So naturally, you're going to feel terrible about yourself and want to quit. So we have to learn how to practice stop judging ourselves and other people for what anybody else is doing, where they're at in their journey, who they are, the decisions that they're making, how they're making those decisions, whether you agree with those decisions, because you are just going to heap fiery coals of comparison back on yourself until you learn how to stop judging other people. The next thing that you can do to manage your energy is you need to learn how to focus on positive futures. If you are constantly worrying about ways that you are going to fail, worrying about what could go wrong, worrying about these other people like we just talked about, then you're training your brain to actually self-sabotage. It's called an upper limit problem. And so all these things go hand in hand because we don't want to be blissfully unaware of the things that we can prepare for, like we talked about, but you do need to learn how to rehearse positive futures and visualize things that are going right, or else at the end of the day, it can drain a ton of your energy by thinking of the negative. Another thing that you really need to focus on to manage your energy is the power of the tongue. What comes out of your mouth is a direct reflection of what's going on in your heart. In fact, the Bible says that out of the utterance of the mouth, the heart speaks. If you can learn to get your tongue under control, which a lot of what comes out of your mouth is a direct reflection and a mirror of who you're around, what they're saying, and what you are ultimately hearing through podcasts, through media that you listen to, and like I said, the people that you surround yourself with. So a really easy and simple way to change what is coming out of your mouth is first an awareness to be disciplined, and number two, changing the people, the places, the things, and the media that you're consuming. This will help a ton when it comes to managing your energy because you want to speak life. Out of your words come blessing or cursing and life or death. And life produces after its own kind, and so does death. So if you are feeling a way that you don't want to feel, or you're thinking and feeling and choosing ways that you don't want to think, feel, and choose, then make sure that you change the inputs to help you change those outputs and ultimately your outcomes that come with your outputs. And finally, one thing that you can really do to manage your energy is learning how to take responsibility. Part of what I love about learning how to take responsibility is it actually puts you back into the present moment. So often our brains can live too far into the future or too far into the past, and it just creates this judgment and this comparison that is ultimately not helpful and drains your energy. If you can learn how to practice mindfulness of being present in the moment and learning how to take responsibility, but not from a judgmental space, it is one of the healthiest and most amazing ways that you can just take a step back and look at your goals, look at your energy, look at how full is your cup, look at your life, look at your relationships, and be able to say, hey, is this going in the direction that I want it to go? Yes or no. But I'm not looking at that from a place of judgment. I'm just looking at that from a place of neutrality where it is what it is, and I can change it if I want to. So finally, I have a little bit of a homework exercise that I want you guys to work through, and this is going to be super helpful for you ultimately managing your energy and climbing that mountain of success. So what I want you to do is I want you to just take a blank piece of paper and I want you to make it into 2 columns. On the left side, I want you to write a list of all the things, people, situations that you know are 10 out of 10 times going to be absolutely draining for you. And then I want you to take a look at that and I want you to ask yourself, okay, do these things have to be present in my life, or have I told myself that these things are outside of my control, but I actually can eliminate a lot of these things and still go about my life in a really healthy, happy, fulfilled, and successful way? Then on the right side, I want you to write all the things that give you life, that give you energy, things, people, places, passions, things of that nature. And I want you to study and meditate on those things, possibly every morning as a part of your new morning routine. This will help your brain to activate. This will help you to become more motivated and will help you to properly manage your energy levels. This is something that I love to focus on even before I have to go on stage. I will think of certain words that make me happy, or I will look at a picture of my family, or I'll watch a video of my friends and I laughing, or my daughter and I laughing, things that naturally help to procure and stir up that gift of faith on the inside of me, in which we know that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So when I focus on the things that bring me joy, it also brings me strength so that if I need to perform under pressure or just perform just like I prepare for these podcasts, right? My environment really matters. What I'm wearing matters. Put a couple curls in my hair. These things matter, right? There's so much more that we can do to help to facilitate that amazing, joyful energy, regardless of your personality style, regardless of what happened yesterday. And a lot of this is both focusing on the good and eliminating the bad. So those are my success tips for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Make sure that you have subscribed to our channel and feel free to submit a positive review if this podcast has helped you guys. And with that, I will see you guys next week.